Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the weekly Tierracast jewelry making demo. Usually here at 10 a.m. on Tuesday mornings, and really enjoy pulling together a project or coming up, occasionally come up with a new project. Usually it's something that we've got on our website in our inspiration section there for you guys to be inspired by. Hello, Nancy. Hello, Katrina. Hello, Patty. Nancy's coming in from Annville, Pennsylvania. Hi, Nancy. Glad for you to be here. My demonstration today is a design that is also available as a kit. It is something that we created in the marketing process for our Wild West product launch that we put out at the beginning of February. So there's some fun little seed bead fringe earrings. Now, if you were with me, was it just last week? I recently did a demonstration of our Western waterfall seed bead fringe earrings. So if you caught this one, that was either last week or the week before. It's all a blur. If you caught this one, then the technique is the same. It is a sort of slightly more beginner-friendly approach to seed bead fringe. So it is, as I think I mentioned, also one of our new kits. So this design with the seed beads, with the beading thread, with the needle, with everything you need, is available as a Tierracast kit. Now, if you're not familiar with Tierracast, we are a wholesale manufacturer. We do not sell retail. So if you want to look for this kit out there in retail land, I'm going to put some kind of a search term that you should look for. Beaded Concho earrings. I'm putting kind of a search term in the comments, and that would be a very, very good term if you want to search for that kit retail. That's a good term to use. It should pop up several retail sources. Kits are very popular right now. They're something that ever since really quarantine, COVID concerns started happening and people ended up being quarantined and homed, jewelry making kits just took off. Now, we've always had a line of jewelry making kits. Maybe I will throw that link in the comments for you as well. We have always had a line of jewelry making kits, but since, over the last 2 years, it has become more and more clear how very popular they are. So we've started to try to include there's another link for you. Started to try and include a couple of kits with each product launch. And we put product launches out several times a year. So it's been really wonderful to see how people have responded to the new kits. So that's what I have for you today. I don't happen to have one of the kits handy to show you, but just know that they come with everything you need. Actually, maybe I'll put I love to throw links at you guys because it's, it's just convenient for me to be able to give you guys exactly what you need to find the things you might want to find. So there's a link to the kit on our website. Now, just remember that we do not sell retail on our website, so you will need to look for a retail source for that kit. But that link will show you what it looks like, and that way you know what you're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my camera, and we'll get it down onto the work surface. And as I was mentioning, seed bead fringe is a very, very popular technique right now. You can really see some gorgeous people just do amazing work with this technique. Often it is a smaller seed bead. This particular design is made with size 8 seed beads. The one we demoed last week is made with size 11 seed beads. So you can see that There's more strands. It's a little bit of a more rich, I think, look with the slightly smaller seed beads. And people do amazing patterns and ombres, and I'm never quite sure how to pronounce that. Ombre, but hopefully you know what I mean. This design, we very intentionally wanted it to be beginner friendly. So it's size 8 seed beads, slightly bigger, so a little bit easier to work with for the beginner. The kit and the design inspiration calls for 2 hammer tone rings. That's our medium one. Calls for a couple of, we used the concho bead earring posts for this design. Calls for a couple of jump rings. I have 3 here because, you know, sometimes jump rings get dropped. Calls for seed beads in 3 colors. Now our kit comes with a seed bead mix. So it's a 2.5-inch tube, which is plenty for this design. It's 3 colors. It's a turquoise and kind of an off-white and a kind of reddish brown terracotta type of color. Hello, Yvette. Hello, Patty. Hello, Katrina. Nice to see you guys. And Elise, thank you so much for popping in. All right, the kit also comes with a needle. If you're not getting the kit, you will need a beading needle. I like big eye needles just because they're easy. And especially for beginners, big eye needles are kind of nice to work with. You may have your favorite. This little thing is just a refrigerator magnet. I use it on, if I'm doing seed bead work, I use it to toss my needle onto. Otherwise, I lose my needles. You need some beading thread. Now, I like the braided and bonded. This is Wildfire. Fireline is another one of those braided bonded type of cords. I do want the lighter weight. These types of threads come in a couple different weights. I want a lighter one. So this is the 0.15 millimeter. That's the thickness. So it's a 10-pound test. Fireline comes in a bigger variety of weights. So you will find like a 2-pound test, a 4-pound test, a 6-pound test. Those are all quite fine. And that's fine. You can use finer beading thread is just fine for this design. It's an earring, so it's not going to take a lot of abuse. You know, if this was a bracelet where it was getting kind of banged around a lot, you may want to work with a heavier beading thread. It totally depends on what you're doing. A fine thread works just fine for this. You can also definitely use whatever kind of silk or nylon beading thread you prefer. And some people like to do that to match the thread color to whatever their components or beads are. In this case, a white braided bonded is going to work just fine. You need about 40 inches of thread to do one earring. You could go ahead and put enough thread on your needle to get you through both earrings. But generally, I find that working with a smaller amount of cord is a little easier. Just you don't get tangled as much. It's just a little bit easier. So 40 inches is just fine. I think, one other thing I forgot to mention is that you got the 3 colors of seed beads, but we've also in this design used what we call our 3 millimeter faceted spacer. And that is a sweet little spacer that we've had in our offerings for a very long time. It's a favorite with people. And it's just a tiny little 3 millimeter faceted spacer with a little bit of a beaded design on the edge. Works really nicely with size 8 seed beads. So that's the little accent bead that we're using for this design. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up one of these rings. And as usual, I'm going to try and keep up with some comments and questions. So hello, Julie Peterson. Nice to see you. I am going to keep up with some comments and questions as best I can. If I miss your question, if you have a question and I miss it, please feel free to send a message to me on the Tierracast Facebook page. I will get back to you that way. So I'm running my thread through the ring and just tying it onto it with a double overhand knot. And I do want to make sure it's nice and tight. I don't want that to be a loose, tied on loosely. I want it to be nice and snug. So I've tied that on. I've left myself like there's about a 4-inch tail there because I'm gonna weave that in later after we've got all of the fringe on. And then I'm going to take my needle and thread that onto the other end. And there, right there, you can see why I like big eye needles. They thread so easy. So I'm going to kind of tuck a lot of this stuff over to the side so that there's not a lot of stuff right underneath where we're working. I need my seed beads right underneath where we're working, but I want to kind of move everything else aside so that it's not too cluttery. That kind of makes the view a little better for you guys. All right, so the first thing you do to start this type of fringe is you use brick stitch to attach this first little row of beads. I'm going to attach 7 of these little beads, and those are attached directly to the ring. And then all the little fringe strands just come off of that initial little row of beads. So to start that brick stitch, I'm going to pick up 2 of those little faceted spacers. And then I'm going to bring those right down to the ring. Then I'm going to thread my needle through the ring. And that pulls them down and kind of sets them sideways. And then I can take my needle and go up through that second bead. So then it effectively kind of tips them over and so that they sit next to each other instead of sitting stacked, if that makes sense. I'm just bringing that needle through and up through the second one, and it separates them and kind of sits them next to each other like that. So that's the first 2. To attach the rest of them, I just pick up 1 at a time and I do the same thing. I bring my needle through the ring, tuck that little bead right down to the top of the ring, and then thread my needle up through the bead. And then I'm pulling that thread tight to kind of tuck those up nice and close next to each other. And then I'm just going to keep repeating that to attach the subsequent beads. And I do use a little bit of a trick where I kind of trap that bead against my finger so that it's not sliding around on the thread, and it kind of traps it right there and helps me to keep it right where I want it. And then it's a little easier to be able to get the needle up through there. And that's, if you're just starting this, that may be a little more fussiness than your fingers want to do. But I find it very helpful. I just kind of keep my finger pressed against the back. The thread just kind of passes between my finger and the ring, keeps that bead right where I want it. And occasionally you have to get that tail out of the way. And I pulled my needle off. So let's get that back on there. All right, so where are we at? We have 4, 5, 6. We're putting on our last one now. And I'm going to check those and make sure that everything's nice and tight. before I start stringing my fringe strands. So the pattern for this, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm good. I've got my first row of little faceted beads. The pattern is just very simple. It's kind of a chevron pattern. I start with the red. I add a silver, 3 whites, silver, 5 blues, silver. And then to make the chevron, I just add 1 more red in each strand. So it's pretty simple. I'm just going to pick up 1 red, a silver, 3 of the off-white. And also, so of course, because this design came out with our Wild West collection, we were really doing a very southwesty kind of palette. If you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I got 1 too many of the blue ones. You could adapt this pattern to any color beads you want. So there's my first fringe strand. I'm bringing that whole row right up to the ring, and then I'm going to separate that last silver, and I'm going to pass my needle back through all of the beads except for that last silver. And I do want to be sure that I go through each bead. I don't want to miss any, because that would pass my thread on the outside of a bead, and we don't want that. So I passed my needle through all of that strand plus that original silver that's up against the ring. And I got my thread wrapped around the strand. So let's undo that, because that will just make a knot of some kind. There we go. And then I'm going to just pull that thread all the way through. I want to kind of groom that little strand. I don't want my thread to be too tight. I don't want there to be any thread showing. So I want it to be pulled tight enough not to have any slack, but I don't want to pull it so tight that the beads are kind of really tight next to each other and kind of crimped up. I don't want that to happen. I need them to have a teeny bit of wiggle room. Not so much that you can see it, but enough so that they can move a little bit. So my needle is up through this silver bead, and now I'm just going to pass that down through the next silver bead. Pull that through. And I don't know if you noticed, but when you do that, then it also adjusts the tension again of that first strand. So you'll be watching those as you go along and making sure that your tension stays good for all your strands as you work into the next one. So for the next row, hi, Kimberly. Hi, Robin. Hello, Chris. A lot of familiar names. I always love to see the familiar names because it feels like I'm hanging out with friends. So for the next row, I'm picking up 2 of the red beads and then a silver. And then the rest of the pattern is the same. 3 of the off-whites, another silver, and 5 of the blues or turquoise, whatever you want to call those. And then again, just slide those all the way up to the ring. Pass your needle, skip that last silver, pass your needle all the way up and through all the beads and up to that first silver. And down through the next one. And it would have been something I could have done here. Wait, hold on. So next strand, 3 of the reds. Something I could have done here is made a step out and, kind of just created the earring far enough along where then we could jump from these first 2 strands being demoed and then jump to the end. But this actually goes pretty quickly, so I didn't really think we needed to do that. 5 and a silver. This, as I was saying, this does work up pretty quickly. It might not go all that quickly if you're brand new to it, but as you get used to the technique, you'll be surprised how quick it goes. So that I'm at the center strand. There's 4 red ones on there. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. It is really good to kind of, after you've picked up all your beads, but before you proceed, just double check your count of all your beads. And again, as you're coming back up through all of them, make sure you don't miss any with the needle. You can see it's coming together quickly. Hello, Landa. Thank you for popping in. Something new that we're doing, I've switched to StreamYard for my Facebook Lives, which means I can also simultaneously stream to YouTube. So I'm not quite sure how that's going. I don't know really how many viewers we're getting on YouTube as opposed to Facebook. So if you are watching on YouTube, make a comment so I can see you. I am curious to know how it's doing over there on YouTube. I do like that now I can stream to both places at once, because before I had to wait a couple days and then add the actually download the video from Facebook and then upload it to YouTube. So it was a little process. Now, because I'm doing it through StreamYard and I can do it to both places, it's automatic and it's very convenient. I need a few more of my little silver beads. Hello, Amanda. Amanda's watching on YouTube. That's awesome. My mat, sometimes I use a little bit of that sticky like blue tack to keep my mat stuck down on the surface. And it must be all worn out because my mat's just sliding all over the place. I need to replace that. Not so important if you're just working at home, but when you're working on a video demo, it's kind of better if it's not sliding around all over the place. Helena is saying that this seems so easy watching and that maybe she's going to give her kit a try, or the kit a try. I highly recommend it. You will find it easier than you think. It will take a little bit for you to get used to the technique, but I think you'll find that it goes pretty easily. So I got to that center strand where there was 4 red beads, of course, at the top. And now as I'm going back to along the other side, I'm just reducing a red each time with each strand instead of adding a red. And just like that, I am at the last strand. I got to get that needle down through that last bead. Or that first bead, actually. That was the very first one that went on. And I need a couple more of those turquoise ones. Hello, Shelley. Nice to see you. Hi, Brooke. She's popping over to say hello from YouTube as well. And Ruth Ann is asking if she can, asking about saving it on YouTube to rewatch. It should be just available on YouTube. And yes, you can access it and then save it to one of your own lists. The name of the broadcast will be Beaded Concho Earrings Jewelry Making Demo. And I will, once I'm done with everything today, I'll go into YouTube and I'll add it to a couple of lists and I'll pin it to the top of kind of the primary list. So it should be pretty easy for you to find. And also another way to access it is once we have a video of a project, I will put a link to that in the actual inspiration page for that project. So there's a link at the top of the comments that goes right to, or wait, did I put that link in there, you guys? Well, if I didn't put it in the comments, then it's in the description. There's a link to the inspiration, and I'm going to add a link to the video in that page. So that's another way you can get to the YouTube video. So now you can see I've got all my strands. I just quick look. It doesn't look like I messed up any counts. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to kind of check my tension, my thread tensions, and make sure each of the strands looks pretty good. Remember, I don't want them too tight, but I certainly don't want them too loose. So I think they look pretty good. And now to finish off, I've got my needles coming out of the top of that first strand. I'm going to bring that down into the second strand, the previous strand, just down a little ways, like I'm coming out the third bead, one of the silver ones. And I'm going to, I don't want it wrapped around there. I'm also noticing I have a little knot in my thread. Somehow at some point I got a little knot, but it's not, it's not going to cause any problems. So I've pulled that down, I've passed my needle down into that second strand, and now I just want to, I exited this silver bead and I want to make a little half hitch knot. So I looped my needle around the thread and I've got a little loop there, and I'm going to pass my needle through that loop and then pull it tight, and it makes a little half hitch knot. Then I'm going to pass my needle down a few more beads and just kind of pull on that to make sure that little knot I made up there is tight. And now I could, if I really wanted to be sure that things were going to stay put, I could do that again. Not really necessary, but I'll do it again just so you guys can see the process. So I just passed my needle around the thread. I exited the bead, passed my needle around the thread. So now I got a little loop, and passed my needle back through that loop. And you do want to make sure that the thread stays, everything that's happening is happening between those two beads. You don't want to accidentally go around one of the other beads, because then you've got a knot wrapped around your bead instead of around the thread. So, which is fixable, but you try to avoid it because it's a little fussy then to have to try and get it unwrapped from around that bead. And then I'm bringing my needle back down the strand all the way to the bottom. And then I'll give that a little tug to make sure those knots are good. And then I'm going to very carefully trim off that thread. I want to make sure I don't accidentally cut the wrong thread. That would be bad. So I took my needle off that thread. We're all done with that one. And now I'm going to thread it onto the tail that we left at the beginning. And then I'm just going to then pass that needle down through that back down through that very first strand. Oh, hold on a second. Thinking, yeah, I can pass it down through that very first strand. And that's already got a knot because we tied it on with a knot, right? So I don't really need to add any more. I could do another half hitch knot just to be super secure, but I don't really have to. So I just needled that tail all the way down, and then I'm going to trim it off like I did with the first one. And there we go. That's our fringe. Ruth is saying she just wants to buy the rings. What size are they? These are called our medium hammer tone rings. They're about 5/8 of an inch. And Ruth, if you go to the inspiration page that is linked up in the description of the video, if you follow that link and go to the inspiration page on the Tierracast website, it has a part list, gives you all the information for the parts that we used for the design. So our fringe is done. The only thing to do is I'm using one of our medium oval jump rings, and I'm just going to attach the earring post to that and then attach it to the ring. And that jump ring got a little bit spread open in the process, so I'm just I'm closing it up by wiggling and pressing towards each other, the ends towards each other, to close that gap up. Let's move these out of the way. And there you go. So that was pretty easy, right? It's like when we made this project, our intention was really to be very beginner friendly, and it is. I think it's a good one for people to start on. Let's get these out of the way. And so I have a couple other things to show you guys. Get that out of there. Put that in there. The tube, if you buy the kit, there's a 2.5 millimeter, I'm sorry, 2.5 inch tube of the bead mix in there. That is enough to make, hold on, I'm pulling over some other examples for you. That is enough to expand on the pattern. So I did these yesterday, and I wanted to see if I could do a longer pattern, same thing, but just adding a couple more beads to each strand. And it was plenty. I was still left with like a third of a tube. So what I did for this variation, and I also included this info on the page, on the inspiration page. So again, if you go to that link that's in the description that goes to the inspiration page on our website, I included this little variation. So what I did was I just added an extra red to each strand and 2 extra whites and 2 extra blues. So it added about a 1/2 inch in total to the length of the fringe. So that's just it's a good thing to know. There are enough beads in here to be able to play with the length a little bit. I could have even gone with a little more. You just want to make sure that whatever you work out with for the first earring, there's going to be enough to do the second one too. So you'd want to possibly do some counting, but just so you know that that's an option. You can make your fringe longer if you so desire. So that was gratifying. I knew that we could do it, but I hadn't really done it. So when I did that yesterday, I was like, yay, that works. And people have that option. And then another thing that I wanted to play with yesterday is, so you've got the inspiration page, it's got all the instructions, it's got your part lists, and it's got a picture of the original palette, but you can also adapt that technique and the pattern to other colors. So I thought it might be fun to do like a monochromatic design. So I pulled out like a purple size 8 seed bead blend and put them together into kind of a monochromatic. It's the same pattern, 5 and 3, and then the reducing and increasing of the upper color. But I think it came out really cool. So I'll probably load this picture onto that inspiration page too, just so people know that they can adapt the pattern to whatever palette they want. So thought that was a fun thing to do. So that's it. That is the demo for this technique and these earrings. And you can make it your own. You can add some length. You can change your palette. There's lots of possibility. So hello, Andrea. Hello, Carmen. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. It really is this technique. Oh, something else I forgot to mention. I was about ready to switch my camera. So in the original, we used our hammer tone ring. We also have a what we call our stitch around hoops. And there's two shapes. We have a stitch around hoop, and then we also have a stitch around teardrop. I'm going to throw a link into the, if I can find a good link for that, I'm going to throw that into the comments for you guys, because those are really fun components for using seed beads on. And here's a very good link, brings them right up. So our hammer tone rings work great for stitching around. And then also we have this other series of parts that work well for this technique. So I just put that link into the comments for you guys. And yeah, so you can shop and kind of take the idea and make it your own, adapt it, use whatever colors you want to use. Use the different the different ring components to stitch around. So thank you. Thank you for joining me for this demonstration. And I'm going to throw that link to the project into the comments here again, just so it's easy for you guys to find. And hopefully, as I was saying at the beginning, we do a live demonstration every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific. So usually my event announcement goes out on Saturday. So that way I have the rest of the week to figure out what I'm going to do next week. So watch for that on Saturday, and hopefully I will see you. And Andrea, the hammer tone rings that we used in this kit are actually, I think they're the 5/8 or 3/4. They're the medium ones. Be sure and look at the inspiration link I gave you, because it will give you all the information you need about the parts. So, and we do those hammer tone rings. They do come in a variety of sizes. So if you're buying your parts separately, you will want to make sure you buy the right size, or not. Buy the bigger one and use and adapt the pattern and add more strands and make it your own. All right. Thank you, you guys. And I will hopefully see you all next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Have a great day. Be well and make lots of great stuff. And we'll see you then. Bye.